The last few indicators of this instructional leader segment put us right into the classroom. This is perhaps the most important function of the principal as an instructional leader, cultivating instructional excellence. Let's review the indicators. The principal monitors curriculum and classroom instruction regularly. The principal spends at least 50% of his or her time working directly with teachers to improve instruction, including classroom observations. The principal compiles reports from classroom observations showing aggregate areas of strength and areas that need improvement without revealing the identity of individual teachers. The principal challenges, supports, and monitors the correction of unsound teaching practices. This is where things get a little sticky. What does it mean to monitor curriculum and classroom instruction regularly? And how on earth is a principal able to spend 50% of his or her time working directly with teachers to improve instruction, including classroom observations? We'll get to the how in just a minute, but first, we're going to address why this is critical, and why without it, real change in instructional practice, and therefore student learning, is tough to achieve. In our instruction course, we focus heavily on the alignment of standards, curricula, instruction, and assessments using success indicators to describe the specific actions and practices that, when implemented well, will achieve alignment. While a principal can monitor instruction and its alignment to standards, curriculum, and assessments in a number of ways, there is nothing like up-close, first-hand observation. Maintaining high visibility in classrooms and throughout the school is a defining leadership characteristic. Let's listen to this principal's perspective on this point.
Well, I think the biggest way that curriculum gets monitored is my, I'd like to say daily walkthroughs. They're not daily walkthroughs, but they certainly are weekly. You know, it's those unannounced visits, you're popping in and checking on things and seeing how things are going, and then in best circumstances, following up and having those reflective conversations with staff about what's going on in the room and those kinds of things. I think also when you're collecting your data and assessing your data and you're finding places where students aren't performing at levels of proficiency or what you've set for a target or something like that, you know if your curriculum is lined up to meet those areas and then students aren't attaining those goals, it's probably a pretty good indication that maybe the curriculum isn't getting covered like it should be. But it's something, too, I think you have to talk a lot about with your staff, taking that time during staff meetings to have those conversations about your scope and sequence and where are you at in the pacing guide and different things like that. You have to hold people accountable for that, or it just doesn't happen.
Honest, isn't it? We should emphasize that observations do not have to be formal or included as part of a personnel file. In fact, a principal who makes frequent visits to classrooms, meets with teacher teams, and demonstrates genuine interest in helping teachers improve their instructional skills has been associated with positive effects on students' and teachers' attitudes and behavior. Here, a principal talks about her frequent classroom visits, and a teacher in her school reflects on what those visits mean to her.
Teachers and kids see me every day and mostly more than once a day. I'm in the classroom to see learning. I'm in the lunchroom to visit in a social way because the relationship that I have with my kids is really important, but I also want to see what they're learning. So when I'm in the classroom, they may do a wave or I might do a wink, but it's really, what are you learning? You know, what's going on? So I'm identifying what the learning standards are that we're doing when I'm in a walkthrough. I'm looking at student engagement. I'm looking at discipline. I'm looking at all the things that teachers are using in their craft to do a good job. And then every other week, bi-monthly, I meet with teachers, and we have a half an hour where they can just really talk to me about certain things that they're struggling with. It could be instruction. It could be how to reach a kiddo. That's an opportunity for me to talk about what I notice in the classroom, areas that I think they need to work on. Teachers also set goals in the fall, so we kind of keep in touch with what their goals are and what they're doing to meet their goals. And then in the fall, we'll do a reflection together. They'll write about their progress, and we'll talk about what went well and didn't go well. And because we have time set away just for each other in that relationship every other week, we can have those conversations on a regular basis. And those meetings are really important for both of us for that reason.
She always does a morning walk around to kind of just set the tone, set the pace, say hi, show her face, let everybody know, here we go. And then she does, I think it's called a 3-minute walkthrough, not necessarily 3 minutes, it might be 2 or it might be 8. But she just comes in at a number of different times. Once Becca started this, it just became so comfortable. It's just like sunlight coming into the classroom. Like, there's the sunlight again. And sometimes she'll talk with kids, and sometimes she'll slide up right beside me and we'll co-talk or co-teach about something. And sometimes she just sits back and watches. It's just delightful, and it's so comfortable and so common and so everyday. She doesn't even have a clipboard, which I especially love, because as soon as you see somebody write something down, you go, what did I just say? So she has laid that foundation in this, her walkthrough strategy. And Becca is there as a coach and a cheerleader. So I think the combination of the 3-minute walkthrough and a more formal assessment, I think will be very meaningful for us.
Sunlight, comfort, coach, cheerleader. See what impact frequent, genuine visits can have on the students and teachers in your school. On its face, this might seem a bit overwhelming, but it really doesn't have to be. In your workbook, we have included a list of indicators of effective teaching and classroom management, very specific and easily observed actions that every teacher should implement in his or her classroom. These indicators are also the focus of our instruction course. Place some or all of these indicators into a checklist that you can carry with you. That way, when you do visit a classroom, informally or formally, you have a list of effective practices against which to measure strengths and weaknesses. Pick just 3 practices that you will observe, or maybe 10. However you want to configure it, but at least you will know exactly what you're looking for. And remember, they're research-based, proven to be effective practices. Looking for the same practices in each classroom makes aggregation simple, which makes isolation of strengths and weaknesses across the school simple too. Though we can't promise the remedy will be simple, we can promise it will be accurate. You're probably still wondering how frequently you'll be able to get into a classroom to observe, aren't you? Consider this. In one school, the principal and the assistant principal made short, regular classroom visit observations, 5 to 10 minutes each. These observations gave them informal and impromptu opportunities to see what instruction was like in classrooms throughout the school. The leaders prepared a 1-page summary of the observations within 24 hours to share and discuss with the teachers. The summary did not become part of the teacher's formal professional record. Instead, it was used to sharpen instructional practices. Is that practice something you could implement in your school? What is standing in your way? What would you need to give up in order to make it happen? Would having an established list of effective practices to look for make this more doable? Of course, short visits, sometimes called walkthroughs, aren't always enough. Less frequently, observing teachers for whole class periods is necessary. Researchers generally find that learning-focused leaders spend more time in classrooms with instructional teams and meeting with teachers to talk about instruction than the average school administrator.